Hello, everybody. Welcome in to the NBA Front Office Show. Trevor Lane here. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, over on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA. Oh boy, the middle of the night news breaks are certainly fun during the summer. If you guys are joining us live from YouTube, you're over on Twitter, welcome in. We're going to talk about some big stuff going on in the NBA today, joined by Keith Smith. Keith, when the news, I was still awake actually when the news broke last night about the Celtics and this Durant situation. I knew when I saw it, I went, oh, Keith is going to wake up to this. How busy was your phone when you woke up this morning? Like, how many messages did you wake up to?
Oh man, I'm off on these live shows. A lot of messages. That's the answer there. I was sound asleep. I actually did get up in the middle of the night to get a drink, and I'm trying to resolve to not look at my phone in the middle of the night, because then I get caught up in stuff, and then I don't get back to sleep, and it's a whole mess. And I said, yeah, and I'm not going to look at it. It's the end of July. There's nothing going on. And then I woke up to all this craziness. And as I was waking up was when so we had the Woj story initially in the middle of the night. I think that was about 1:30 in the morning my time here, or maybe 2:30. Was something like that.
Yeah, it was even later than that.
Yeah, and then as I was like waking up and fully coming to and reading what Woj put out there, Shams was tweeting out with more details. So busy morning, suffice it to say, for late July when I thought we were going to be winding down.
Well, let's just start with your team, Kevin Durant and the Celtics. What is going on there? It sounds like my outsider's perspective here is that the Nets would like to see Marcus Smart involved, plus, of course, Jaylen Brown would be the backbone of any deal, plus some picks involved. The Celtics are trying to do it without Marcus Smart involved, looking at something else here. Looking at Derek White, maybe a pick, something like that. What are your thoughts on this? What should the Celtics give up, and can they get this thing done?
Yeah, this is interesting because functionally any deal would have to include Jaylen Brown. I did have some Celtics fans ask me, like, could they do it without Jaylen Brown? And not really. I mean, he would be the number one most valuable piece going to the Nets, and
you
also
do it with Tatum.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, you can't, because Ben Simmons is there.
That's
so
right.
Can't have,
that whole complication.
Imagine that, Ben Simmons blocking you from getting Jason Tatum. Anyway, moving on. As we get into it, there is, yes, mathematically, salary matching wise, you could put together a deal that doesn't have to involve Jaylen Brown. That is 100% true. It's nothing that the Nets would do, though. So Jaylen Brown sounds like the initial Celtics offer was Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and a first-round pick. The Nets came back with, how about Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and multiple first-round picks, and maybe another rotation player thrown in on top. Maybe that's Grant Williams. Maybe that's Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. Who knows? Right? We don't know what that other rotation player would be. I think the challenge comes in is the real value probably lies somewhere in between there. But between those two offers, because I don't know that 3 rotation players plus a bunch of first round picks is what Boston should be doing for Kevin Durant. I also don't think Brown, White, and a single first round pick is enough for Kevin Durant. And so that's where the negotiations start. Now, Brian Windhorst, recently he was doing radio in Arizona. He came out and said he doesn't think these talks are new. He thinks these are old. And from his sourcing, that there haven't been any talks recently, involving Kevin Durant. So now we're kind of caught in that source off battle, right?
Right.
To add to it, Jaylen Brown tweets this morning, SMH, scratching my head. So what does that mean?
Is it scratch? I always thought it was shaking.
Oh, maybe it is shaking. I don't know.
I guess
it could be either. I don't know. Somebody tell us. Somebody
must know.
Right? Yeah, somebody younger and cooler than us. Maybe it's both. But anyway, it's shaking my head, scratching my head, whatever it is. Jaylen Brown wakes up and seems maybe a little perturbed. So let's see where all this goes. It's a late July drama in the NBA, and it's not the only drama by any means. We've got a lot more to get into beyond this too.
Absolutely. But so we always take rumors like this and we say, look at who benefits. I think very clearly this is not coming from the Celtics. And if these are truly trade talks from some time ago, and this is not something that's actively happening, if what you're saying from Windhorst is correct, that would suggest that maybe the Nets are kind of putting some stuff out there. And it's Woj, so that's where it originated. So that, he's got Brooklyn ties.
Yeah.
He's in the area. Perhaps this is the Nets putting something out there, trying to get another team like the Raptors, like the Raptors might go, oh, okay, well, here's Scotty Barnes then. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to get some other team to improve their offer. That could be what's going on here as well. Not to say the Celtics don't have a good offer, a competitive offer. I think they certainly can. But if that's correct with what Windhorst is saying, that these are old talks, that's how this would make sense.
Dave, to close the book on our last discussion, multiple people say it's shaking. A couple say scratching. One said shanking. I don't think
shanking.
That's right. Now
that's a
everybody
crime.
Seems to be getting on board with shaving. So
shaving.
Yeah, maybe it is
shaving my head. So that's it. Jaylen Brown is not upset.
Yeah, he's just shaving his head this morning.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all there is. Right. So anyway, yes, to your point of who would leak this, I think it's clearly this comes out of Brooklyn. This does no benefit to the Celtics at all to leak this. I will also say the Celtics' last 3 trades, big trades since Brad Stevens took over, Al Horford, Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, came out of nowhere.
Right.
We had no real reporting or sense that any of those trades were going down until we got the tweets that they happened. So that says to me this is probably coming out of Brooklyn for the exact reasons you said of, hey, let's go, try to drive this bidding war. It's been stagnant. It's been really quiet here for, weeks now. I mean, this was almost a month.
The whole league's been shut down.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And now the Nets are probably saying, all right, hey, we want to get things pretty buttoned up here before we head off into whatever we're doing in August. Let's try to get this market moving and get something done. Hey, let's put this out there now for that, and it is what it is. So that's that's kind of the story for this one. So we'll see. Now I'm going to ask you. I'm going to flip it on you because I do the Lakers outsider guy.
That's right.
All the time. I'm going to flip it on you, Celtics outsider. What would you do if you were Boston, or would you just say, "Nah, I'm good," and walk away from this entirely?
If I'm Boston, I'm doing everything I can to try to keep Marcus Smart out of it. But I'm also understanding, and this has been my opinion since he was deserving of the Defensive Player of the Year. But I've also felt like that award was in some ways a team award.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a credit to the Celtics team defense. So I'm not valuing him as though, oh my gosh, this is our one lockdown defender, and this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. We're definitely not parting with him. If you can get it down to, if you can just value-wise get it to where you want to go, let's say it's Brown, Smart, and a pick instead of Derek White and like 3 first-round picks in the deal or something. Like if that's the path the Nets want to go down so you can somehow lower the ask on the draft pick side, I'd be okay with moving Marcus Smart because I think this kind of a move could take the Celtics and you can say, well, they made the finals last year. Yeah, but the Eastern Conference is still pretty crowded. This could be the thing that differentiates themselves from everybody else out there in the East. And again, Jaylen Brown, tough to part with him because he's young, still has plenty of upside. But Kevin Durant's that guy, right? Kevin Durant is that guy where if you've got him on this roster, you could really, really do some damage in the East next year and potentially win a championship. So I'm not dismissing this, even if it means sacrificing Marcus Smart in the deal. But if I'm going to go there, I'm going to try to ask for a reduction in what the other stuff I'm giving up if I'm the Celtics. That's the way I'm playing this. Or if they're okay with not doing Marcus Smart, okay, then we'll come off of the 1 draft pick thing and maybe we'll do 2 picks or 2 picks and a pick swap or whatever it is.
Yeah, that would be my guess is where they would ultimately land is something like Brown, White, 2 picks and a swap in between. That just seems to be what would make sense moving forward. So we'll see where that goes. On Kevin Durant, just because I've seen some people today, right? And this is tough. And we go through this every time there's trade rumors. Some people get super excited and other people are like, absolutely not. We'll give up, Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard in a second for Kevin Durant.
Take it or leave it.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just fandom, right? And we've both been on both sides of that argument before too. It's Kevin Durant though. Kevin Durant last year, 29.9 points, 7.4 rebounds, 6.4 assists per game on 52, 38, 91 shooting splits. Like, I don't care that he's going to be 34.
He's
It's
an
Kevin
all-time great.
Durant. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's one of the best players all time, and he's coming off, another tremendous season. Now, I think here becomes your challenge if you're the Celtics, if you give up too much. You just spent the bulk of this offseason at this point rebuilding your depth. You got Brogdon, you got Gallo, you didn't give up any of your rotation guys to get them. Now you start trading three rotation players for Durant. Now you've got to rebuild some of that depth, and there's nothing left to rebuild that depth with. And that becomes one of your challenges. And not only that, but let's just say it was Brown and White in the trade and then picks. 6 of your 9 top rotation players would be good bets to have either injury or age-related issues next season. That becomes a bit of a challenge. So you have to, while it looks great and it sounds amazing, you have to factor that into how much are we willing to give up. And those draft picks, you have to be thinking about a couple years from now when Durant is now going to be 36 or 37. We want some of those draft picks so that we can be bringing some guys in. So that's why it's not an easy conversation, because to me, if you're just saying, yes, we want a title in the next 2 to 3 seasons, you do this, you go get Kevin Durant because he's going to put you closer to a title than you would have been otherwise, barring injuries. If you are thinking, I want this window as wide open for as long as it can be, you hang on to Jaylen Brown and you say, you know what, we're pretty close anyway. Maybe Brogdon and Gallinari put us over the top, and we don't need to give up everything to go all in right now.
Well, see, I looked at it the other way. I went, the Celtics have spent all this time building up their depth, so they're better prepared for a move like this, because you get, hey, we lost Derek White. Oh, hey, Malcolm Brogdon, you can do similar things. Off we go. Right? Like that's the way I saw this from my perspective, was they built up this depth so that you can make a move like this where you have to sacrifice 2 or 3 guys in order to get the guy.
That's definitely part of it, especially at that ball handler position, because now they have Smart, Brogdon, White, Pritchard, all capable ball handlers, all guys who can play, somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes per game. And you feel pretty good about that. I think one other thing that I want to address with this topic is there's a lot of people who said, does this mean the Celtics know Jaylen Brown's not signing an extension? And no, he's leaving. One, the Celtics know he's not signing an extension. The way the extension rules work is veteran extension, you can get 120% of your prior year's salary in the first year, and then 8% raises on that. Brown was a non-max extension when he signed that extension years prior. And the reason he did that was, remember, he was coming off a year when he signed that extension where he'd come off the bench quite a bit and didn't play quite as much, because that was the year that Hayward had returned. They had Marcus Morris, they had Kyrie back. That was the year, I think it was Bill Simmons said they're going to win 69 games easy, and went, bananas and went crazy. And clearly that wasn't how it went, because nobody was happy playing 20 minutes per game. Shocker, right? So it all kind of crumbled on them. So Brown's value was not a give me the full 5-year designated player extension. Now, the good news, if you're looking at doing this trade, is that opens it up. He can be traded to Brooklyn because he's not on the designated player extension. Because if he was, Ben Simmons would have to be traded somewhere. But anyway, that part of it aside. So Brown's not going to sign an extension because he'd be giving up roughly, it'd be between $100 and $120 million total. If he signed an extension versus just let this play out to free agency. So because it's in his best interest, and he should not sign an extension. If I was counseling him, I would say, do not sign an extension. This is ludicrous. Do your thing, come off another, all-star campaign or 2, and then you'll sign for the full max, likely in the summer of 2024, and off we go. So that I don't think, unless Brown came to the Celtics, which would be very weird, 2 years out and said, hey, I'm not coming back in 2 years from now, I don't think that factors in at all. I think what factors in there is the idea of, hey, we can get Kevin Durant. Let's at least, look into the option.
Right. Yeah, you absolutely have to if it's Kevin Durant. I wonder how much trepidation is there on the Nets side to do another trade with Boston, though. I mean, that's got to bring back a little PTSD.
A little bit, yeah.
We did get a super chat. Alan said, good to have some basketball to talk about. It's been quiet these last couple of days. Great to see you guys. Go Lakers, Kobe forever. We're going to get to Lakers talking in just a minute. But yeah, it's been it's been weirdly quiet. And I guess not even weirdly, it's been frustratingly quiet. I've seen a lot of, like, even this Durant thing. I've seen so many people who have been saying, taking the piece of it that says no trade is imminent, and just they're losing their minds at this point, because we've had rumors, but nothing concrete, nothing imminent, nothing actually getting done, and the whole Durant situation just kind of blocking the entire NBA right now. People are like, just make something happen. Maybe this is a step towards that, but we'll see if we can get there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, trades this big are complicated and they're gonna take a while. And my guess is what happened was the Nets put this out there June 30th, or right. That's when KD said he wanted traded, because it was only hours before free agency opened, and found everybody coming back and saying, all right, hey, here's our offers. Gobert got traded, and the Nets were like, yeah, those offers are now garbage.
Right.
We can't do this for KD.
So thank you, Minnesota, for ruining our summer.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to up the asking price for everybody. Then right, and it's funny because somebody actually tweeted at me the other day and said, man, Danny Ainge screwed over the Nets again, and he didn't even trade with them this time by getting so much for Gobert. But anyway, now, or conversely, maybe he helped them, right? Maybe he's gonna help them get more for KD. But it's then things all went kind of quiet. Teams who aren't probably in the Durant mix said, you know what, moving on, I'm gonna go do other moves. We're not gonna sit around and wait on this. Then things kind of, all the good free agents came off the board, all the cap space and exceptions flew off the board. And now we're sitting here, Spurs and Pacers have a ton of money, almost 30 million. We've got major guys, KD, Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell, Russell Westbrook, star players, former star players, big money players, all on the trade market. And that's why this has taken so long, because this is also complicated to put together, because it probably feels like every time, all right, maybe, then you get some team jumping in saying, hey, can we be a third team, man? And we'll do this and that. And then you go back to the original team and they're like, I don't really like that. But if you're not interested in this, how about this? And that's why these things take a very, very long time. The example I always give, and everybody's getting ready to do this in the next month or so here, when you do your fantasy football draft and then you're negotiating with your buddy, trading stuff, you probably, more often than not, unless your buddy's a moron and you're taking advantage of him, or maybe you're the moron and he's taking advantage of you, you probably send back 100 emails and texts back and forth about trade proposals. Now put that into something that is big and really matters. This is why these things are very complicated.
It does. It takes a while to get things done. But again, I think the sense that the NBA has been sort of held hostage by this Durant situation, I think has led to a lot of frustration from fans around the league, wanting to see stuff open up. And again, I don't fault the Nets. You got to do your due diligence and figure things out. But we'll see where this ultimately winds up and whether or not a deal gets done, especially when people start hearing this could stretch all the way to training camp. You hear the collective groan across the basketball world.
And I think for years we would have said, nah, that never happens. That's not how it goes down. But then that did happen with Ben Simmons, and we all had to wait until the trade deadline for a Simmons trade to happen. We're all like, with that one. So I get it. I get,
the Simmons siren got much use.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, regular base. I'm glad we've retired that one. Hey, we have a super chat coming in. So let's jump to the Kemba Walker story. Oh man, the Boston.
Oh, I heard it.
Oh, did it ever come out on that one?
I heard it. All right. Isham said, question for Keith. Why haven't the Pistons bought out Kemba Walker yet and still haven't signed Kevin Knox? Are the Pistons GM, Troy Weaver, planning to eat another big contract for picks? Maybe. So let's jump to that story. Kemba Walker back to the Hornets. That was something that broke from Shams Charania right before we went on the air. So what is that? You think the Pistons have something else up their sleeve here?
I think, I don't know that they do, but I think they maybe do. I think what the Pistons are doing is they're just being smart. There's no rush to buy out Kemba Walker. Walker's owed $9+ million. Let's say he gives back $2 million in a buyout. Great. So that gives them $2 more million on top of the $10 million they're sitting on right now. Brings you up to $12 million in cap space. They already have a deal agreed to with Kevin Knox. Either he's going to get some of their cap space or he's going to get the part of the room exception. So they're not going to, there's no reason to rush because there's nothing else for the Pistons to do at the moment. Now, if they get into a position where it's, hey, we could maybe get involved in trade X, then maybe you rush a little bit more. So just for them, they're being patient. They're waiting to see what happens with this. From Sham's reporting, Kemba back to the Hornets makes sense, right? The Hornets need a backup point guard. They've got LaMelo Ball and Terry Rozier. He's also saying maybe Isaiah Thomas back there. Yeah. Thomas played well for them last season after catching on later in the year. So yeah, I think there is a chance, that one happens, and it makes sense. Steve Clifford also important to remember. The Hornets coach again loves Kemba Walker, and Kemba loved playing for him. So there's that to factor into it as well.
Yeah, would not surprise me at all if that's the way this ultimately winds up.
And you know what? I don't hate it. If Kemba's your backup point guard on what would likely be a minimum contract, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, for sure. IL Farkash said, as a Lakers fan, I've never felt this conflict. Because Lakers fans saying that I've never felt this conflicted, Lakers fans are saying, oh my gosh, the Nets need to just figure out life and decide what they're doing with Kevin Durant so then they can decide what they're doing with Kyrie Irving. But obviously Lakers fans weren't thrilled to hear, oh my, Kevin Durant to the Celtics, come on, So Lakers fans are very torn right now, Keith. That's the world we're living in.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's been it's been that kind of summer for Lakers fans coming off a long year, right? You just want to hit reset and start fresh, and here we are, some of the same old stuff just dragging into this off season.
That's it too. Everybody's waiting for, okay, can we freshen the air around here or what?
I wonder if it's you would know obviously far better than I would. It feels like it's also like I don't care what we get for Russ, but it's probably going to be a lot of just be done with this. I don't want to have to think about him as a Laker anymore, right?
Yeah, that is certainly out there. That's definitely the sentiment. I mean, there's concern about, and we're going to get into Russ in a minute, but there's concern about getting the right deal and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people who are just saying, look, if he's on the roster next season, we won't be here. So,
sure. Yeah, which I mean, I guess makes sense, right?
Which isn't entirely fair to Russell Westbrook, I think. But again, we'll get into him in just a minute. But
hey, I want to shout out before we move on to our next topic. Spot Track, man, look at this. I'm rocking the company gear today.
Oh, look at that! I like it.
Looking good. I love it. It's a great shirt.
I like it.
So
now we need to get front office shirts.
Yeah, I know we do need some front office.
To do that.
Then we could do front office giveaways. Y'all in the chat, tell us if you'd be interested in a little front office gear.
Yeah,
if you're interested.
Let's get to Donovan Mitchell, the other big trade that's out there. So Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz talking trade with the Knicks. Kind of similar to the Kevin Durant situation that he's got multiple years left on a contract. I think it's 3 years left on a contract. So the Jazz don't feel like they have to make a move just yet, but it feels like every time we turn around, there's another connection to the Knicks, and everybody's just assuming this is going to get done. And yet here we are, not done yet. I mean, I know, like, just as Lakers fans have been frustrated with the whole Russell Westbrook thing, Knicks fans have got to be getting frustrated. Like, when is this happening? What is going on here?
Yeah, and the challenge is again, reporting from Shams Charania is now there's 6 other teams have jumped into the mix, at least at some level. Now it could have just been, hey, you interested in X, and Danny Ainge and Utah were like, no, and then they moved on. But Miami, who we've known, but also Washington, Toronto, Charlotte, Sacramento, and Atlanta, all in the mix. And we kind of went through, remember, it feels like it was probably a week or so ago now. We went through and just rattled off a whole bunch of teams of, maybe could they? I didn't even consider a couple of those teams like Atlanta and Washington and Sacramento. It feels like they've got kind of pretty loaded backcourts. Yeah, Charlotte wasn't a team I had on my mind. I will say Danny Ainge loves Terry Rozier. Like his like he's one of the long lost Ainge kids, so maybe that one could make some sense. That'd be kind of fun. LaMelo and Donovan Mitchell together. That'd be a fun backcourt. I don't know how good your defense will ultimately be, but yeah. So Yeah, I mean, but Shams does still say, I think I'm paraphrasing here, but most still expect it'll be the Knicks because they can offer the package of picks that Ainge wants plus the young players. So, let's see. But we've heard Miami was looking at ways to maybe get some extra picks and, so they could jump in, whether it be on Kevin Durant or on Donovan Mitchell. So we'll see. But the Mitchell challenge with Mitchell is it's getting up to the matching salary too. Obviously, same exists with Kevin Durant.
Right.
There, a couple people have asked, so we'll just refresh people because people are starting to get at least a semi understanding of this whole. But I thought you can't have two designated players on the same team. You can't have two that you traded for.
Right.
Because Bam Adebayo was signed by Miami, they can trade for another player on a designated player extension.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Of those teams, is there a team that you look at and think, man, this team could at least get close to the Knicks offer? Like, I have a hard time seeing Sacramento getting there without giving up stuff that they don't want to give up. I don't like Washington. I don't see how they get there.
Yeah, I think
that's tough.
I mean, Toronto's always interesting just because Toronto has a million interesting players that they could throw into the mix. Yeah, Washington, I don't see it. I'm looking at Charlotte now because now my brain's already thinking about Mitchell Melo backcourt.
Yeah, I mean, what does Charlotte offer? Terry Rozier and
Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, I mean,
that'd just be humorous, but
right.
Yeah, but I think Charlotte's got. Let me double check. I think they might have all their. Well, they it's lottery protected that they owe a pick now to San Antonio via New York and Atlanta, but they've got an extra Denver pick, so they could probably get there with a bunch of picks. Challenge is the Knicks. Everybody keeps mentioning with the Knicks, like they can offer all of their own first that they have, plus all these extra picks. The problem is when you say all these extra picks that the Knicks have, a couple of those picks aren't so great.
Yeah.
It's like a Detroit and a Washington pick. So, for example, this upcoming draft, the Knicks have their own pick. They have Dallas's pick, but it's top 10 protected. They have Detroit's pick, but it's top 18 protected. And then they have Washington's pick, which is lottery protected. So that those picks are not great picks, right? So, that's why they'd have to add in, 4 or 5 of their own picks plus swaps and everything else.
Yeah, and that's where it gets to be challenging if you're looking at the value coming back from New York. Now there's players that they can add in and all of that. And I still think the Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks makes sense and ultimately happens. But again, who benefits? This is probably coming from the Jazz. Hey, Knicks, we've got 6 other teams that are interested in making this happen. Now, this could be stuff
Danny Ainge would never.
No.
Yeah.
That would not happen.
No, that's exactly the play here is right. Like, hey, you better throw all in now because we've otherwise we're sending them to Atlanta.
We might send them to Sacramento. We just might.
Yeah, that's it. We might trade them to Sacramento for Chimezie Metu and Trey Lyles. No disrespect, man. I actually, I'm pretty high on Trey Lyles. Mr. Moves ×2 says in the chat, today's my 21st birthday. So I'm so glad we get a live show. Happy birthday, man. I hope you get far, far better presents throughout the rest of the day than this.
We did not plan to do a live show today, but given the news, we just decided to kind of go for it.
Just we'd see who wanted to hang out for a while. And based on the fact that we've got 1,000 people here right now, I'd say several people wanted to hang out.
Yeah, looks like it. Let's talk a little bit about Collin Sexton. Still appears to be stuck in Cleveland. Now, it did mention that Shams mentioned that Rich Paul, Clutch Sports, they are not budging off of their contract demands, which means both sides are still sitting there kind of staring at each other. What was the report? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I should have written it down. What was the report? It was like $40 million for 3 years or something.
Yeah, it was from Chris Fedor. I think that was on the Wine and Gold talk.
Very tuned in with the Cleveland.
Chris is all over. Yeah, he writes for Cleveland.com. I think it was 3 years, $40 million is the Cavs standing offer that's on the table, which is basically signing whenever. Yeah, it's only $13 million a year. That's and I think Sexton thought I'm getting 20 to 25 million. I'm getting well north of 20. This one is starting to remind me now. It's way less money because things have changed quite a bit in the near decade since. But this is starting to remind me. Remember Tristan Thompson? Clutch held him out all the way almost up to the beginning of the season before they finally agreed to a deal with Cleveland. And Sexton's a clutch guy, so it wouldn't surprise me. And the challenge is, this is where restricted free agency sucks, because nobody other than the Pacers or the Spurs, who don't really have any reason to, can give Sexton anything resembling a reasonable offer that the Cavs won't just immediately match. So you're kind of stuck here, and this is where you wait. And maybe we do get this happens about once every 3 or 4 years. Maybe Sexton does sign the qualifying offer, plays it out, and then moves on in restricted or unrestricted free agency next summer. But let's see. It's tough too, because with Sexton back, he helps that team. I know they re-signed Rubio. They've got Karis LeVert now, but Sexton would still help. I know you and I seem to be higher on him than maybe the masses are as a player. But I think, just losing him for nothing next season would be a real bummer for a team that's, on the come up in the East.
Now, I do wonder with just restricted free agency in general, because now we're in a spot where if he was unrestricted, he would have been one of the top targets on the market. I do wonder, we're hearing all this stuff about, Kevin Durant asking out with 4 years under contract. Ben Simmons, similar situation earlier. The next CBA negotiations, that's going to be a concern from the ownership side. That's going to be something they're going to want to address. I wonder if the players might ask for some changes in the way restricted free agency operates, because we see situations like this. It's 1, 2, sometimes more players each year where restricted free agency just nukes their market value, and that's a tough spot to be in when you're the player. I wonder if that becomes a bargaining chip. Like, hey, if you want extra protections in terms of players sticking around, maybe you can't be traded the first 2 years or whatever, we're going to need some movement here on the restricted free agency side.
Yeah, I
just
think,
a guess on my part.
Yeah, I think people would like to maybe see restricted free agency retooled or gone. Maybe it's one of those where, hey, a player is restricted until X date, and then if nothing happens, but then you might have teams just wait on offering a player. So I think there's going to be changes coming to that process. I think the extension process, I think the whole idea of, hey, you signed an extension both on the player and team side, you're now linked together for X years of that extension. Before we go, but that's all stuff we can get into, if and when the news ever stops in August.
All right, let's go. Monty Williams contract extension. Speaking of contracts, with the Suns, what are we thinking about that? I mean, not unexpected, I guess. This is an incredible coach, and here he is now committing long-term to Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, as expected, when we get down to a year or two left on a contract is usually when a coach says, hey, I'm locking in. We're either get me signed or let me go. And we were down to, I believe Woj's report was it was a 5-year deal he initially signed. He's been the coach for 3 years of it. Usually in a coach deal too, it's whatever the length is, the last year is a team option. That's 99% of the time that is the case. So, so if that was a team option, he was coming into his last year for sure under contract with Phoenix. So, get it done, lock him up. You've played, some of your best continuous basketball under Monty Williams. And, let's be a healthy team. If DeAndre Ayton's fully on board and you're all okay in the locker room, probably a good chance, they'll be fighting for a spot in the finals again.
Yep. Yeah, they certainly could. Kevin Porter Jr. also interested in a contract extension with the Rockets. What do you think? I mean, this is a guy who's talented, but there's all been questions about him and what goes on off the court and everything. But this is, if he's a talented young player, he's the kind of guy that the Rockets should be taking a gamble on. I just don't know what a contract extension would look like for him.
Yeah, that's the challenge here. When you're a later guy in the first round, like Kevin Porter is, there's one or two things generally happen here. Either you really pop and you get the big deal, which is great for the player and great for the team because you got a player late in the draft that you feel pretty good about or traded for or whatever, or you sign a deal that often ends up looking like, man, the team got a steal here, and that's the tricky part. You don't want to sign this and then it gets tweeted out and guys like me are instantly like, what a great deal for the Rockets.
Right.
Because then you feel a little bit like, crap.
Right.
But as you mentioned, there's been some problems with Kevin Porter Jr. in the past, some attitude things, some on the court, off the court stuff has happened with him. So yeah, if he can lock in some money, let's get this done and lock in a little bit of money here. If you're Kevin Porter Jr., I don't know. I feel like if you could get something in the 12 to 15 million a year range, his average annual value, you probably feel pretty good about that. Great news for the Rockets is, yeah, that sounds like a lot of money, but they could have $70 million in cap space this summer. They have one player, Jayshawn Tate, who signed to like $6 million for not this upcoming season, but the season after, who's not on a rookie scale deal, who's guaranteed to got guaranteed money on the books. One guy, $6 million. Everything else is all those, great value rookie scale contracts. So they're set up really, really well moving forward. So even if you go a little bit more on that, not the end of the world.
All right, let's talk a little bit of Lakers and Russell Westbrook and what's going on there. Shams had some news there. Let's start with this, though. Jonas Sanchez said, just saw a new tweet. The Pacers rejected Westbrook 1 first and 2 seconds for Hield and Turner. It's really going to take 2 firsts to get rid of Westbrook, huh? That was coming from Bob Kravitz of The Athletic, who editorialized a lot in there, suggested that is a bad offer that the Pacers would be stupid to accept. But that's
he's also from Indianapolis and covers Indianapolis sports. So let's be clear about that one too.
Right. So that's something that's out there, was that the Lakers did offer that. As far as the Pacers are concerned and the Westbrook trade front, though, right now, everything we've heard is that the Lakers aren't going to do any deal with Russell Westbrook involved until they know for sure what's going on with Kyrie Irving. But according to Shams Charania, they did talk Westbrook trades with the Utah Jazz, with the Knicks, and with the Pacers. I think these are all backup options in the event that the Nets decide either they're not going to trade Kyrie or they're asking too much for Kyrie.
Yeah, I guess here's the thing with the I forget, it was Jonah asked about it's really going to take 2 firsts to get rid of Westbrook. Well, in that trade, you're not straight salary dumping him either. Yeah. Trevor knows I've said if it's a straight salary dump, probably only giving up 1 pick, but I still need something back that somebody who can play. In this case, you're getting 2 players back who would be, if not starters, major rotation players for the Lakers. So yeah, I mean, think of it as it's 1 pick for dumping Westbrook plus 1 pick for getting these two guys back. Right. Yeah, and then the Kyrie part of it, yeah, I mean, I think it's in the Lakers' best interest to wait as long as is reasonable. Now, I don't have a time frame on reasonable because I don't even know what reasonable is anymore, because we're sitting here in late July still talking about all these guys on the market. But I think you wait on that one just because you don't want to find out the day after, like, it's like, this sucks, he's getting traded away. Like, it's a bummer. I want to unite Celtics and Lakers fans for a minute here, or at least some of them.
Sure.
Bob Kravitz is hated in Boston and New England because he was the Deflategate guy. And he has since come out and been like, yeah, I'm not so sure I was right to put that out there when I did. So there it is. So we can all come together on that one.
That's an interesting connection there. Yeah. But and again, look, he's writing from the Indiana side of things, so it's understandable. Like we all do that, right? We all are going to put in our own spin on things. But I think if this is what we've been talking about from the Lakers side of things. If Indiana is saying, hey, we're demanding 2 firsts unprotected, and the Lakers are saying, no, we're going to do 1, maybe there's a middle ground with a couple of seconds, maybe you throw in a pick swap, something like that. You can kind of try to
throw a player back, if they like one of the Lakers guys. Yeah. Right.
Yes. Exactly. So that's part of the negotiation process. But it sounds like even 2 seconds instead of first, the Pacers are, oh, no. We wouldn't do that. And if you're the Lakers, that's where you say, okay, well, let's talk to the Knicks. Well, let's talk to the Jazz. Let's see what they've got. Let's see, we prefer a Kyrie trade anyway. Let's try to figure out some things there. The Knicks inclusion in this is interesting because, well, the Jazz too, the Jazz and Knicks, this would all be dependent upon a Donovan Mitchell trade. But what are you doing with the Knicks? Are you really doing a Julius Randle trade if you're the Lakers?
And why if you're the Knicks, right? Because you just got Jalen Brunson. Like, what? Why?
Now you want to clear salary?
I mean, I guess if that's your goal, but like, I don't know. I mean, I would think their goal is to try to win while keeping things somewhat flexible versus, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That one just seemed odd to me too. It didn't make a ton of sense there. You know, I would hope you wouldn't your pivot, if all right, well, we're not going to get Donovan Mitchell. I would hope your pivot wasn't going to be let's go get Russell Westbrook. Like that seems a little weird. So yeah, I would probably pass on that one if I was the Knicks. But the Jazz one, yeah, that one does make sense to me because if you trade Mitchell and now you're in a position where hey, the Lakers will give us a pick or 2 picks or kind of the similar package to the Pacers. Right. We're going to give you Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson, or Mike Conley and Bojan Bogdanovic or whatever it is. Yeah, go and do it if you're the Jazz, because why not, right? Even if worse is Russ just comes, plays, and puts up a crazy stat line for you over the course of the next season, or you buy him out, or you just say fine, sit home.
Yeah, I think that's probably what would happen, because you might accidentally win a few games that you don't want to win if you're playing Russ. And you just let him go do his thing. Not say you're going to win 50 games or anything like that, but I mean, this is going to be actually a really competitive tank race this year. So I think that's got to be a factor here for Utah and for any team trading for him. For the Knicks thing,
which way does that go? Does that help you if he plays, or does it hurt you?
I think if you're a team that's developing young talent, I think it hurts you.
Yeah,
right, because he's going to take those minutes.
I don't know that he's necessarily leading you to a lot of wins.
No, it wouldn't be a lot, but like for example, if let's say the Magic started Russell Westbrook 82 games, they probably win more games than they would want to win had they otherwise just said, no, we're just going to send you home. Right. Like, so if you're in that situation where you're trying to accumulate draft capital and all of that, then it probably wouldn't be the best thing to actually bring him in and play him. The Knicks side of this, I don't think it makes sense for the Knicks. I don't think it makes sense for the Lakers either. I don't like the fit with Randall, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and I'm still on Randall Island. I'm a longstanding resident, bought property there, but it's also a huge contract, and he was not good last year. I mean, he was right really there with Russell Westbrook in terms of the worst jump shooters in the NBA. I don't think you're solving a whole lot of problems there. So it's interesting to see their inclusion here, but just because they had talks doesn't necessarily mean anything's going down there. But again, just a strange one to get added in the mix with the Jazz and the Pacers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that one just seemed a little weird. So yeah, I get it. Or I'm with you, I should say. That's a little odd.
We should also mention, while we're on the topic of the Lakers, that Shams Charania did say no Rasheed Wallace for the Lakers. We heard about a week ago, probably a little bit less the way the news cycle's been. It feels like it was longer ago. That Darvin Ham mentioned that they do still have an open spot on their bench for another coach to come in, mentioned that they're still having conversations with Rasheed Wallace, but also talking to other people as well, other candidates. According to Shams, that's now not happening. Rasheed Wallace not coming to the Lakers. Again, not huge breaking news or anything like that, but certainly something worth noting.
Yeah. It's not uncommon that things like this happen, where they kind of get down the line and then somebody decides, I don't want to do that, or maybe didn't want to move, maybe his family doesn't want to go, who knows. So they're not as you said, not major breaking news, also not a huge shock by any means either. I wouldn't take this by any means to think at all like, oh no, what's going on with Darvin Ham and his staff. I just think he changes his mind.
Yeah, exactly. And that can happen. And it's the way it goes. Sometimes when you're faced with the prospect of moving your family, that can be a factor in things. I mean, like that's been a factor for a lot of different coaches. So anyway,
one other thing, I'm sorry, I just want to go all the way back to the top of the show. Yeah. Because we kind of skipped it a little bit in Shams reporting about the Kevin Durant trade. Yep. He says after Phoenix matched Indiana's offer sheet for DeAndre Ayton, Suns are all but eliminated from the Durant sweepstakes. And then he puts the Raptors, Heat, and now the Celtics are the top teams pushing for Durant.
So be interesting to see how those other teams respond to the Celtics thing, which I think is why this is out there. And but not to say,
100%.
again, the Celtics talks are probably real, but this is also probably like, hey, Toronto, hey, what do you guys think? What are you thinking here? You ready to increase your offer? That's or Miami, can you get more picks like that? I think it's putting pressure on.
Yeah, can you get more picks? Can you help us find a home for Simmons if we really want Bam Adebayo, or it's something along those lines. So yeah, it's my guess is this was probably mostly aimed at Toronto of like, sure, you won't trade Scotty Barnes? Like, can we at least have the conversation again, what it would look like?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the Nets are looking for, is to try to re-spark that interest in Kevin Durant and see if they can get something done. I keep going back to a point that was made like a week ago, and I wish I could remember who made it, but that if the Nets, after giving everything to Kevin Durant, that wasn't enough to keep him happy. Like they said, you run the team. What do you want, KD? Kyrie, tell us. You run the show. Other teams have got to feel at least some caution.
Sure.
Like thinking, okay, we get Kevin Durant, but how long until he's not happy here too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like a little bit. It almost feels like, remember way back, it was when LeBron was, it was clear it was probably wrapping up in Cleveland for a second time. There was all the thought of like, well, maybe he goes to the Lakers and he's there for a couple years, and then maybe LeBron just plays mercenary and he just keeps bouncing around the league. I almost wonder if Kevin Durant shouldn't have signed that extension and then just went to the highest bidder every year and just kind of, hey, I'm going to be a mercenary here and go around, trying to lift teams and trying to win.
Just sign with whoever had the best record the previous season.
Right. Yeah. Best record. Yeah. I mean, that's a cheap shot by you, but I think, but yeah, why not? Right. Like just go, so let's go. We'll see.
We've got Isle Farkash said, are you guys going to talk about Slava Medvedenko selling his championship rings to support the Ukraine, the war in Ukraine? There isn't a lot to talk about there, but obviously Slava, he's former Laker and doing something and sacrificing something that means a lot for him in order to support something here. So, I mean, that's the kind of story that the story is there's not a whole lot of analysis to add into that, but
I mean, it's sad, right? Like,
absolutely
really sad. I mean, maybe we could see something where the Lakers buy them from him and then they hold them and give them back to him, or just say, hey, what are you looking for? We'll give some money, in place of it, or players or something like that. But I mean, we've seen a lot of guys have sold championship rings sometimes for far worse reasons than this. So, it's sad though. It's sad that that's even where it's at.
Absolutely. All right. Well, why don't we wrap things up there? Appreciate everybody who joined us live, coming in from YouTube, from Twitter. Keith, I mean, we at least got a little bit of a news jolt there last night and early this morning. We'll see. Maybe this is followed up with some more aftershocks of the Kevin Durant situation, and who knows? Maybe the NBA will pick back up and be fun again. Hopefully, that's the way this goes, and we get some more excitement before things ultimately
Let's just do it at like
summer.
10 in the morning or after, like between the hours of 10 and 10. Those are good hours for news to break.
Yeah, let's do something like that. Well, I mean, so you didn't like the whatever it was, 2:30 in the morning breaking news?
No, I don't want that. I don't want to get up and be like, ugh, like with that. So yeah, no, let's 10 to 10 works for me.
Oh, I missed here one super chat. The Raptors offer versus the Boston offer. Which offers? I think it really depends. Like, do the Raptors come off of Scotty Barnes? Are they willing to offer that up?
Yeah.
I think that's what determines it.
Yeah, everything we've heard so far, Jaylen Brown is easily the best player that's been offered up in trade. So yeah, I don't think it's even close.
Yeah, unless Scotty Barnes gets offered. I think that could change the calculus here. But in any event, thank you everybody for joining us. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.